sisters, once again we're going to have a little entertainment. I guess I don't have to tell you what it is. The sheet kind of gives it away. And once again, brothers and sisters, we're going to share our pleasure with some neighbors less fortunate than ourselves. Won't you please clear the first 3 pews so they may have seats? And when they get here, I'm going to ask you once more, neither by word, nor by action, nor by look, to make our guests feel unwelcome, nor draw away from, or act high-toned. For we is all equal in the sight of God.
Amen. His work is, to me, irrefutable proof of the afterlife, for it is impossible to make films that sweet and not go to heaven. That is David Mamet on Preston Sturges, and this is Filthy Armenian Adventures with your host, Alec Mohibian. As the Motion Picture Academy prepares to honor this year's irrefutable evidence of hell, I thought it would be a good opportunity to remind the world, or introduce the world, to the miracle of Preston Sturges, and investigate why his unparalleled streak of grand slams, from the Great McGinty to Christmas in July to the Lady Eve to Sullivan's Travels to the Palm Beach Story to Miracle of Morgan's Creek to Hail the Conquering Hero and finally to Unfaithfully Yours, are irrefutable proof of heaven. If you can't sleep at night, it's not the coffee, it's the lack of Preston Sturges in your life. The first hour will be free for all the bums, the hobos, the less fortunate. The second hour available exclusively to the spiritual elite who subscribe on Patreon. And it will begin with a brief advertisement from the new Filthy Armenian division of Maxford House Coffee. Hey, this is your host, Alec Mohibian, with a quick message before we continue. Based in that great but very troubled place, Hollywood, California, Filthy Armenian Adventures is an interdimensional travel program that takes you deep into the cultural mysteries of our time. In search of truth, in search of gold, in search of lost friends and unsung heroes, in search of John Galt's motor. This show is your antidote to the black pill. This is your guide to the places, the personalities, the ideas and creations the enemies of man don't want you to know. This is your techno-noir investigation into the good, the evil, and the God hiding under our noise. This is where you get the news before it breaks, before it blows, before it burns. The show is supported entirely by patrons at patreon.com/filthyarmenian. As a patron, you get access to twice as many adventures, including the most important ones, the ones with the real facts. Plus, regular brief smoke break spiritual reports on topics of the day. As a patron, you also get exclusive access to our Smash live events. Ask anyone who's attended one, and they will tell you it's an experience you'll never forget. It's very easy to keep Filthy Armenian Adventures alive. You can still listen to the show on your favorite app like Spotify or Apple, and you can do so with the pride that you're putting a little bit of money where your soul is. More patrons means more fuel, more topics, more investigations, more miracles, more secret locations, and forbidden territories around the world, and the world that is Los Angeles, our post-apocalyptic headquarters. It means we'll be able to track down more enchanting figures in the landscape, dare them to abandon their masks, and join our quest out of the darkness and into a golden age. Patreon.com/filthyarmenian. Thank you for being one of the good ones, and enjoy the show.
mean, if you thought the ideas were good this afternoon, you still think they're good, don't you?
Well, of course I do. Why?
Well, I mean, since they were good and they're still good, they have to be good. And then it wouldn't make so much difference, or any difference, if I hadn't won the contest, the Maxford House contest. Would it?
Of course it would make a difference.
Oh, it would.
Well, certainly it would.
Why?
I'm no genius. I didn't hang on to my father's money by backing my own judgment, you know. I make mistakes every day, sometimes several times a day. I've got a whole warehouse full of mistakes. I should say it would make a difference. You see, I think your ideas are good because they sound good to me. But I know your ideas are good because you won this contest over millions of aspirants.
Yes, but you see, Mr. Baxter...
It's what you might call commercial insurance.
And today, I welcome back an old friend of the show to celebrate and explicate and ponder and investigate and try to get at the gist of the magic of my favorite filmmaker of all time, Preston Sturges. The ultimate, one of the very first comedic or any writers in Hollywood to also become a director and a producer of his own movies, and to go on a historic run, an absolutely historic run, almost entirely within World War II, with one hit after another. And though he is sort of categorized as a screwball comedian and his movies as screwball comedies, he is a style and a voice unto himself. He's not the same as your basic idea of a screwball comedy, even though technically it overlaps. Maybe we can talk about that. Welcome back, Matthew Wilder.
Thanks. I have been seized with blinding terror about this podcast for days because I don't want to let you down, and I don't want to let Preston Sturges down, because I've been just pondering him in the last few days. I mean, maybe the first thing is, you should launch and just I think the thing for everyone to get is that this person is someone, if you don't know him, you should rush towards him immediately and devour all of his. There's not that much work. How many movies are there? 12, I think, maybe total.
I'm so jealous of whoever has not seen Preston Sturges, every Preston Sturges movie to this point, because I just rewatched almost all of them, the ones that I consider to be the pantheon, the 7 or 8 of them. And I watched some that I hadn't seen, such as the one he wrote. He was a very successful screenwriter in the 30s. And one of the big themes of his autobiography, which was kind of stitched together from his journal notes by his daughter, but is very worth reading. It's called Preston Sturges by Preston Sturges. And it's a document of completely just irresistible Americana. I mean, he grew up. I don't know how much you read of the biography.
Matt. I just read the whole thing.
You just read the whole thing. Okay, good. So you'll be able to guide me through it. I read it a long time ago, and I reread the ending, the last part where he becomes a director, which is really just the very last few chapters. The rest of it is about his crazy upbringing. His mom was a best friend of Isadora Duncan, so he was just basically raised by Isadora Duncan in spirit, and that, I think, definitely comes through in his work. He had an amazing life. I mean, I didn't even remember the half of it, but I did know some of it. It's not just movies either. And we'll get into that. He had literally a John Galt's motor company. He had an engineering company to try to invent John Galt's motor. And it was supposed to be called the Silent Sturgis. I don't know exactly what that company did or did not achieve, but it did. It was in business for years. It produced engine after engine. It was one of the many side hustles he had. Another side hustle he had, very near to my heart, was The Players, a nightclub and restaurant on Sunset Boulevard, which unfortunately went under when he tried to build a theater on top of it and ran out of money. He wanted to build a theater so that people could party, could drink, eat, party, and go to the theater in the same place. Sounds better in theory than in practice, since he learned that people would rather move around than than stay in the same place all night. But that the Players is like my dream Hollywood location. I want to own the Players. I want to have a place. I have his theory of the Players, of like what he wanted to accomplish with it, and it's exactly what I've always wanted in Hollywood, and what I want now, and what it seems like it would be absolutely impossible to achieve now. It started out as a place called Snyder's, which he opened to give his friend who had helped him in the musical business, in the songwriting business decades before, to give him something to do, to manage a restaurant. And he opened that in 1936, also on Sunset Boulevard at a different location, 8789. A watering hole and eating establishment. We offered steak, chops, good liquor, fine wines, music, pool, chess, checkers, dominoes, and colbudo, whatever that is, and a place to eat and drink that stayed open well after midnight. And so he was just a man of endless energy, and also a deep profundity, lustiness, everything. He is just the most American person who ever lived, in my opinion. So if you have not seen them all, I'm gonna name them all. We're gonna talk at least a little bit about all of them and highlight some of our favorite. They all deserve their own episode, honestly. They each of them deserves its own episode. But there is a magic brew to this man's art that makes him not only one of the great filmmakers of all time, but one of the great American artists, and I do not hesitate to say, a right-wing artist hiding in plain sight. That's a very easy thing to pick up when you watch the movies. Put this on your list and just like schedule it for when you need pleasure and joy in your life. I will list the movies now. The first movie that he directed is called The Great McGinty. Original title, Biography of a Bum. Change the title. The Great McGinty, 1940, starring Brian Donlevy and Muriel Angelis. It's about a hobo who rises to become governor and then falls again. And it almost begins with a depiction of people buying votes before an election and bribing voters to vote in a city machine. It's so perfectly relevant, so evergreen. And it's just like this. It's basically about this, like, you know, the bum is like this real tough guy who gets into it who basically enters a bromance with the mafioso who runs the machine of the city. I don't remember what city, if it's ever specified. Seems like Chicago, but I don't know if they ever named the city. Number 2. I had overlooked this one when I watched it the first time. I kind of like had dismissed it as one of the lighter ones. Turns out it's actually more prescient and more timely to this moment, I think, to this last decade, than maybe any of the others. Christmas in July, also 1940. Yeah, that's 2 in the same year.
67 minutes, masterpiece.
67-minute movie.
If you can't sleep, it's not the coffee, it's the bunk.
If you can't sleep, it's not the coffee, it's the bunk.
Yeah. It's about a slogan contest. The invention of a slogan. Well, you go through all these, and then
you take it. Do you take it? Because you know what, you're the one who told me. You're the one who highlighted that one, and I was like, Christmas in July. I remember watching that.
I really like Christmas in July. I mean, this is just, you know, the thing that I wanted to speak on this, and you've watched all of them more recently than I have. I watched some of the more. I went to look at some of the more fringe ones. Which actually turned out to be great. There's one that is a Sturges written movie that was directed by Mitch Leisen, a really, really talented guy who was sort of in the kind of a little bit like in between the wit of Billy Wilder and the sort of design style of Vincent Minnelli. And he was he's not a big name. He's sort of forgotten, but I think people are now in this TCM era are kind of digging him up again and seeing that he did a lot of good work. One of his movies, 1937, Easy Living, This is a great fucking movie. And it's pure Sturges. It's directed by Blyson, not quite with the same manic exuberance as Sturges, but it's really, really good. A movie about a rich, a sort of tycoon whose trademark is that he gives sable coats to all his mistresses. If you see a girl walking down Fifth Avenue with a black sable coat, you know she belongs to this dude. And one day he gets into a fight with one of his mistresses. They fling the coat over the balcony window. It flies down through the air and lands on a double-decker bus and plops onto Jean Arthur, who is a shop girl. And boom, this coat falls on her head. She goes, "Wow, look at this fur coat," and puts it on. And from that moment on, everybody thinks she's, the king's new woman. So her life changes overnight by donning this coat. It's a fantastic script. It's one of the least plot driven of Sturges scripts, but it is it's kind of like what nowadays they call a hangout movie. It's a little bit more atmosphere and character than plot, but it is absolutely fantastic. Jean Arthur, exquisite. Ray Milland is the rich guy's son, posing as a poor kid, of course.
Yeah, who's looking for a job, who's trying to pose as poor and trying to find a real job, and is going through the classifieds. And there's a great line, but I'm going to flub it, where he says something like, "How come there are no jobs for someone who can't do anything anymore?" or something like that.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful movie. Christmas in July. I mean, this is the thing, is just what I've been thinking about and just wrestling about with Sturges is, first and foremost, we can tell everybody these movies are great. They're beautiful. They're funny. They're perfect. Just go watch all of them. That is a given. But the thing that to me was kind of interesting in looking at them again is I find them kind of indescribable. And I just watched recently Peter Bogdanovich, who's, of course, like a cinephile nonpareil. And he did a thing on Preston Sturges. And he loves Sturges, and he goes into it in depth. But, kind of everything he says is something you could say about My Man Godfrey or Bringing Up Baby or whatever.
Exactly.
And these movies aren't that. I mean, no slur on those movies, but these movies aren't that. There's something different. But it's really hard to say exactly what that is. We can define the Lubitsch touch. You could define in 5 qualities what's a Lubitsch movie. If you had to say what's the Sturges touch, I think it's a little harder. I think it's something his thing is so unique that it's kind of hard to wrap your hands around. Now, the one thing that I've noted in this that I think is, if there's one thing that is a Sturges thing that's different from other people, it's that he was the poet of American mass culture, the beginning of mass culture, radio jingles, newspaper exposés, cheesy pop music on the radio, typified by Rudy Valley, who pops up in a bunch of these movies. Industrial produced culture that yet gives everyone a feeling of belonging. It's something that we don't have now. When you see a Sturges movie, he's poking fun at all these sort of mass culture things, like the contest to have a coffee slogan in Christmas in July.
Yeah, it's all about having it's a contest, a radio contest on a radio program that everyone in the country is is listening to and is submitting to find a new slogan for a coffee company. I forget the name of the coffee company.
Right.
And
Joel McRae is a guy that the people in he has a great slogan. What is it? It's not the coffee. It's if you can't sleep, it's not the coffee. It's the bunk.
Yeah, if you can't sleep, it's not the coffee. It's the bunk.
It's the bunk.
You get it? It's a pun. It's a pun.
There's a pun between, and neither of these words will be known to anyone in 2026. The bunk, which means like a bed in the army, or bunk, meaning bullshit, phony lies, bullshit. It's not the coffee, it's the bunk.
And it's playing, and the whole movie he's trying to explain to everyone who doesn't get it that it's the whole slogan. The whole point of the slogan is that people think coffee prevents you from going to sleep at night, but no, it's so it's like the whole thing is like his whole slogan is focused around dispelling the belief that coffee keeps you from going to sleep at night.
Right.
Which
right.
is, to me, is which is a hilarious thing that ripples throughout, because there's like, well, why are you focusing on the fact that it keeps you awake or doesn't keep you awake?
It's so wonderful. But all these things, all the stuff that Sturges pokes fun at in all his movies, including, probably his most famous movie, Sullivan's Travels, which is about filmmaking. There's a poking fun at it, but there's also, and I think when you call him a right-wing artist, to me, this is the crux of it. Within that mass produced object, there's togetherness, there's unity. Everyone comes together in whatever world that you're living in that movie. It's something that brings people together more than it tears them apart. And I think there's also something to that in the fact that, except for Robert Altman, Preston Sturges is the repertory company filmmaker of all time. I mean, he had this crew that kept coming back. Franklin Pangborn, William Demarest, who people, if you're Gen X, you may know My Three Sons. He's the guy that plays all the roughneck lug nuts in these movies. Eric Blore, the British butler. He had all these guys who came back, and there was, I think, a metaphor in that too. It was like that Sturges ensemble, the repertory company, was like a microcosm of a community. It's like the small towns in his movies, or America. And these people are very fractious, but at the end, they're unified. They're together. They come together of their world.
It's about, he is the poet laureate of American capitalism. I would just put capitalism,
absolutely.
Because it's not just mass. I mean, that's what mass culture is, but also it's also that just look at, he's also making these movies during the Depression, and he's presenting a vision of America that is still and very much America. He is not succumbing to the doldrums. He is not succumbing to the communistic influences that were at that time pervading American culture to poison it for decades to come in ways subtle and not subtle. He was keeping the so-called myth alive, very much so. The rich people in his movies are good people. They're stupid and they're silly and they're in many ways conformist, and they're all the things that everyone is, and all the things that people are, and all the things that reality is. But they are good. Ultimately, they're good people. They're always being generous. They're like anyone else. They're looking for love. They're charmed by personality. They're charmed by charisma and sex appeal. I mean, in one of these movies after another, the rich people act kind of valiantly. And
well, this is okay. You touched on something that surprised me in going back and looking and thinking about these again, which is there's also there's a strange knife edge of comedy and darkness in these movies. I forgot quite how dark some of the things are. For instance, in Christmas in July, Joel McCrea plays this guy. He comes up with a great slogan, and the people in his job play a trick on him and tell him, and they go, "Oh, you won the prize. You won first prize. You're the guy." They create a fake telegram congratulating him, and so he spins out in a tailspin, thinking that he's like the king of the world now, and he's laughing about. He's standing on some desks in the office space. And the boss comes and says, what's going on here? What are you people doing? Get down. And he's about to fire Joel McCrea, and he really is about to go through with it.
It's Dick Powell, by the way. Dick Powell is in Christmas, July.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah. Of course it is. Dick Powell. Oh, fantastic Dick Powell. He is told by the boss, that's it. You've created a mayhem in my office. You're fired. And someone says, hey, you know what? This guy just won the coffee jingle award. And the boss sort of turns on a dime and goes, really? He won the coffee jingle award? All right. Well, and then celebrates the guy. And you realize, well, that's what it would take to turn this guy on a dime. He's not going to just recognize the nobility of this guy. He had to actually do something to merit his attention. And there are a lot of things in these movies where I feel like these characters come closer to the abyss than almost any other comedies that I can think of in the U.S.
But you see how rare it is. I mean, the wealthy tycoon villain is such a stock character in the movies to this day. To this day, like if you want to have an evil person, make him the CEO. Like everything is like evil CEO. Everything's like Luigi shooting CEO. Evil CEO. That's like that's been like bred into it for a century, and it's amazing how seldom that is subverted, that stereotype is subverted, which is a lazy leftist stereotype. It's not that rich people aren't extremely evil and stupid often. It's just that stereotype that somehow there's this, there's inherent villainy in the boss is a very kind of loserish attitude that is spread around, and it's actually bad for people to think that way. And it is completely missing. And in Sturges, even though he's making these movies in the pit of the Great Depression, when there's never been more misery in America, when there's never been less hope up to that point in its economic system, and he's completely subverting that stereotype every single movie, without exception. It speaks to his like larger vision and wisdom. I mean, it's like it's such a the way that the boss turns it's in every single movie. It happens. It's like in every single movie, the mean boss kind of turns exactly when you're expecting him to like bring down the hammer. And there's always this case. People are constantly changing from their stereotype, from their expected stereotype. It's also something that comes through in the romances. I mean, the classic definition of a comedy, right, going all the way back to Aristotle, is one where everyone gets married. They get married at the end. So you can't make a comedy. Basically, I mean, fundamentally, you can't make a comedy without romance. If you're talking about like a true comedy.
Well, that's Andrew Sarris wrote something really I thought was really exceptionally observant, which is he said Sturges is one of the only comic film directors where you're aware of the film as comedy, not tragedy, rather than comedy, ha-ha. And I think that's very true of these movies, because they have an awareness of mortality. There's there's a peril to all these heroes it's different from everything else. The thing that I just am really stunned by is a lot of sort of 50s critics talk about this. Manny Farber talks about it, and Sarris talks about it, that somehow Sturges hit this incredible zeitgeist feeling during World War II, when there's this slew, when he became a director, and there's just this string of incredible films. And then after he got kicked out of Paramount, basically, you would think, well, after this stream of films, he'd get picked up by someone else and just keep going and making other similar kinds of movies. But he didn't, and some of that was maybe his own combativeness and whatever. We don't know that part of his character versus the suits. But what everyone talks about is how the point of view of these movies, which, as you say, it's so refreshing, it's so upbeat, it's so pro-human, that after the war, it suddenly looked ancient to people. It suddenly became this thing from another world. Maybe because people were so traumatized by, at the end of the war, they were so soul scarred. But it is to me like an incredible mystery that you have this sequence of what, I don't know, what is it, from 40 to 44? I think it's 8 films.
I think
And
there's
then,
7 that were huge hits
Right.
these. Yeah, there's 7 massive hits. There's
and
the
then
big 7.
after
and
after
all in a
he
row, by
leaves,
the way.
after he leaves around the time of the Great Moment, which is a really weird. I mean, I guess it was sort of. He claims it was mutilated in the cutting, but it's just kind of a perverse movie about the invention of anesthesia,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a early 30s kind of biopic, like a Paul Mooney sort of really straight biopic, and kind of a comedy. But after that stream of films, he was just unable to go on. And I just can't imagine that. It's as if, Coppola at the end of Apocalypse Now didn't go on from there, like he became unemployable. It's really a mystery to me.
Well,
I don't know
there's
if
some
found
there's
out
some
anything
clues.
about it.
Yeah, there's some clues to the mystery which I'd like to get to, and they open up cans of worms. He clearly, and he's very rueful about his break with Paramount. I mean, first of all, let's start from get back to the beginning, which is how did he finally get his break as a director? It was not normal. It was to have a writer-director in those days. In fact, he may not be technically the first. I don't know for sure, but he's one of the first.
I think he's one of the first in the studio system, and then after him came John Huston with Maltese Falcon and Billy
Right,
Wilder
after,
and
but
so on.
he's if not
Yeah.
technically, if he's not technically Jackie Robinson, he's close to Jackie Robinson, and he's the one who mattered. He's the one who mattered. He's the one who.
Do you remember the story from the book about the Paramount guy making him
Yes.
a dinner?
Mr. LeBaron or something. It's almost like LeBron, which I find to be amusing. This is the story, but this is a story straight out of a Preston Sturges movie, which, by the way, I'm sure his Christmas in July is basically an allegory of Sturges's own creative struggles to become a director, or any other period of his life when he wasn't being given a chance that he really wanted and felt he was ready for.
Right.
Christmas in July is all about that. So in real life, what happens is, finally, after, and mind you, this is a very successful writer. He's like his very valuable writer, but they still won't give him a chance to direct. Why? Because, well, if you want to direct a movie, you're going to have to direct a movie first and show that you can do it. But how are you going to do it the first? How are you going to get it done the first time when everyone says the same thing? They're not willing to let you direct unless you do it for someone else first and show that you can do it. So this cycle that many people are familiar with in the creative world, he gets exhausted with, he gets frustrated with, and finally the production chief at Paramount, Mr. LeBaron, at a dinner, and it's a beautiful. I have the story written down because it's. I'm going to read it. 1 second. I'm going to find it right now, and read it to you. And he gives him the shot. He gives him he finally convinces him at dinner to give him a chance to make basically the Great McGinty, and he offers him.
Well, Sturges prepares like a Caligula level feast for this guy that he just puts on the dog for this guy.
Yeah, he does the
and
grand
blows
buffet
his
for
mind.
this guy. Then came the salad. Mr. LeBaron weakened visibly. With the dessert, he was almost gone. The Napoleon brandy finished him. "What was that biography story again that you always wanted to direct?" he gasped. "After a dinner like that, I didn't tell the story very well.
This episode
but
of
it must
Filthy
have been
Armenian
well
Adventures
enough,"
was recorded
he said, over the air between New
I don't
York
see
City
how a
and
man
Hollywood
who could produce a
on
dinner
March
like this
2 could
brought
possibly
to you
fail to make
entirely
an
by
excellent
you.
picture. The Sullivan merchants,
Yes.
Sturges,
And then it gets
singers,
better.
and
Lady
he calls him
Eves
over
of
to
the
the
night.
production to his
Who's
office the next
subscribe
day,
on
and they go
Patreon.
over the matter.
Thank you for your support.
And
Continue
here's
to
what
spread the
here's
word.
what he said, and this is
And
just
come back next
this
week
is straight out of
for
a
real
of
hot
Preston
one.
Sturges movie. He said, "I am perfectly willing to stick to my bargain of last night. And what I remember of the story, I remember as being very good. But are you sure you want to become a director? It's a terrible job. You have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and stand on your feet all day listening to a lot of ham actors muffing their lines until rigor mortis sets in. You are already a very successful writer with many credits to your name. If you make yourself ridiculous as a director, you will be less valuable as a writer. You are undertaking a very dangerous thing. You remember the adage, don't change horses midstream. To that, let me add, don't change careers in midlife. I told him that I realized all the dangers, but that I had to do it, even if it ruined me. I had wanted to for so long. I was beginning to like the picture business, I told him, but there was only one job in it, and that was making them. Everything else was secondary, and I was not by nature a second fiddle player. Be it on your own head, he said. Then as I turned to leave, he added, by the way, how much do you want for the story? I'll okay any price you say. But let me point out that the less it costs to bring in your first picture, the more it will be admired. How about $1? I said. At the door, I paused and said, as a matter of fact, I'm going to make a hell of a picture for you. He looked up from his big desk and smiled. As a matter of fact, I know it. Yeah. So there is a hero, Mr. LeBaron of Paramount, who makes the career of Preston Sturges as a director happen. Okay? This is the kind of hero that is often unsung and that is even more scarce today than people who are like Preston Sturges.
Yeah, so, have you ever heard Billy Wilder's line about this? I thought this, to me, is the living end. I'm sure Preston Sturges would agree with this. Somebody said, Billy, what would you rather, if you had to pick one, which would you rather do, write or direct? And he said, what would you rather do, make the bed or fuck in it? Mm-hmm. I think that is...
Yeah. I would rather make the bed, but most people would probably want to fuck in it, yeah.
You'd rather make the bed?
Yeah, I'd rather, I'd rather make the bed and then sit in the corner on a chair and then watch.
Oh, the cuck chair. Okay.
Yeah,
Right,
I don't call it the cuck chair.
That's
I call it the front
voyeurism.
row seat. I don't call it the cuck chair. It's so gauche. So we're talking about just how how everything that he does is a Preston Sturges movie. His whole life is a Preston Sturges movie, and that is why his movies have the sparkle that they have. It's not just the kind of schmaltzy, the Hollywood schmaltz, pie in the sky fantasy of a woman who loves you and everything going right for you that it is in other pictures and other kind of screwball comedies and stuff. There's a real hard line of, as you said, the tragedy is always there, right on the surface. It's right there. Certain of his movies are tragic for long periods, are dark and very serious for long periods. He switches tone very, very audaciously. And sometimes he felt that he didn't succeed. He felt that my favorite, Sullivan's Travels, one of the all-time great movies of about the movies, he felt that was a failure. Not a total failure, but he felt that he could, he got lost between two strains at the end, and he couldn't quite figure out the problem that he had to solve, which is basically how to make the serious part and the serious part and the romantic part mesh perfectly.
It's a harrowing movie, and I don't know if people, probably people listening to this is, one of the 2 or 3 most famous of his movies. But, very simply, the conceit of the movie is there's a guy who's a successful filmmaker. He's tired of making fluff. He wants to make something socially conscious and meaningful.
He's a comedic. First of all, he's a comedic filmmaker. He makes movies like Ants in Your Pants, 1939.
Yeah.
Ants in Your Pants, 1939. And they wanted to make more comedies, but he wants to make a serious picture about the struggles of the work. About the struggles of the poor. Yeah. He wants to make Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which obviously had another life. So he decides, I don't really know real life well enough to do this authentically. So I've got to go into the world and really experience the world. And of course, at first, that journey is ridiculous. And he has sort of these flunkies from the studio following him along in a jalopy and so on. But the thing that is to me, and it's this is something that I didn't really remember that well from however long ago it was I saw it. When Sullivan goes into the world, by the end of that movie, his experience of the grit and the rough edges and the violence and the ugliness of real life is really harrowing. It's not just that we see this guy, a Hollywood guy, sort of getting his pants pulled down. It's really scary. And when you get to the end, which I don't think this is giving anything away, he kind of rediscovers the meaning of giving joy to people, giving pleasure to people, making them laugh, making them feel good. It's really earned. It's really earned. You feel really grateful for the sweetness of the last reel of this movie. But I don't know about you. I found that movie more shocking and more dark than I had remembered it being.
That movie, it is more shocking and more dark because it presents, as he does in his movies, it presents a very real sequence of this guy living with hobos and with basically the train track skid rows of the time, which feels especially poignant now that homeless people are everywhere all the time.
Mm-hmm. He loses his ability to get back into safety.
Right. And through clever plot device, he's after LARPing for the whole movie up till the last 30, 40 minutes, he's LARPing. They're following him around. I mean, I don't want to just give away the whole movie to everyone because it doesn't even matter. But basically,
they're carefully. A plot movie.
Yeah, it's not. None of these are plot movies. They're just brilliant spiritual experiences. He's of course he's LARPing as poor in various towns, and there's a big fancy trailer closely monitoring him every step of the way because they're not going to let their investment go off into the fucking boondies without careful monitoring. So the whole trailer with the entire Preston Sturges troupe is there every step of the way to make sure nothing bad happens to him and to give him a place to check into. And of course, one funny thing after another. He runs into some rich people who help him out immediately and want to fuck him, some old ladies. He ends up back in Hollywood. He ends up at a diner where the guy just gives him free food just to be nice. Like once again, every step he takes, he runs into American generosity. And then finally, eventually, due to the criminality of the poor, due to the brutality of one of his fellow bums, the real bums, robbing him and knocking him over the head, he ends up in jail for the murder of himself. It's a lot. I'm not going to give away how that happens.
Yeah. Oh, but it's magnificent.
Brilliantly accomplished. He ends up in jail for the murder of himself. And so nobody, of course, he doesn't, the point is that he's now he is in jail. He's on a what is it called? A labor gang, like a labor camp.
Chain gang.
Chain gang. He's in a chain gang. And he's got no recourse. And as far as the rest of the world knows, he is dead. The director is dead. So anything he says to the contrary is only bound to sound crazy. And he's in that chain gang, and the scene where it happens, the all-time scene, and this was very important for me. My friend Stephen Cox recommended this movie to me way back when I was in high school. As I was myself struggling with, this going to sound really gay, but I was struggling with kind of role of being a comedic person in a serious life. And in an intellectually serious life. And, in retrospect, that was a very real struggle. And that's a struggle that maybe more people should have, who end up being frivolous, kind of like shit-eating jokesters for whom nothing is ever real their entire lives, which is a lot of people as we see. It's become a whole ethos. It's become a whole subculture called the dirtbag left. And it's kind of poisoned by comedic unseriousness. Unseriousness in the name of comedy, I should say, which I think that, the best comedy is typically grounded in seriousness, as we can see with Preston Sturges. But anyway, this movie was recommended to me for its moral to give me like for me to realize that it doesn't have to be a conflict.
Well, let me ask you something about this, because this is something I was thinking about a lot while like chewing on these movies. When I was an adolescent, I don't know if you were like this, but as an adolescent, I was very into movies that had a certain confrontational, nihilistic, Clockwork Orange, Natural Born Killers, Solo, Michael Haneke, even like things that were like confrontational, alienating to the audience, had kind of a bleak vision of humanity. And now I feel like things like Lubitsch, like Sturges, watching Astaire Rogers movies, but just focusing now on Sturges, I feel like there's like a greater profundity in this kind of film than there is in a movie that slaps you upside the head. There is something in these movies which also are filled with charm and seductiveness and music and laughter that I feel spiritually more drawn to this now than I do to that other kind of thing, which is what I think most people who become artists, I think, originate in that stuff.
They do. I didn't. I never did.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I never had a home in anything I've ever done in life, because I've always been the guy who's into Preston Sturges in a world of people who are into 1970s bleak nihilism. I've been the gay in the straight world. I've been the straight in the gay world. I've been the right winger in the art world. I've been the artist in the right wing world. I'm always fucking out. I'm always the that's just the story of my life everywhere. I'm the Gentile in the Armenian world. I'm the Armenian in the Gentile world. It never stops. It's just even now, even with all this, even in our own world, even in our own little circles of online hell, it's turned out that way. And people resent it when you don't, especially people who are into the bleak nihilism, which I think your generation is, kind of was steeped in so heavily, especially through its artistic influences, because of New Hollywood, because of punk, because of all that shit. And not all of them, some of them, like people like Brett, who I think is also steeped, artistic sensibilities are absolutely steeped in Gen X nihilism, in terms of his big influences and so on. But he's not somebody who then holds that over others. And I don't think he's somebody that resents it when someone diverts from that and has a different view. But many resent it. Many think that you're trying to blow smoke up somebody's ass when you're not championing art that's all about killing yourself. Like, many just want everything, like, they just find this comfort in the bleakness, the misery, and they find
all right, I have to say, just to push back against that a little bit, when I was growing up, and I think this tilts into your, I don't even know how old you are. You're
I'm 40, goddammit. I'm 40, and in in a week and a half, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be 41.
Okay, then you're a little kid. But, when I was growing up, the sunny side of the street was Caddyshack. It was not Preston Sturges. It was not Ernst Lubitsch. It was Caddyshack. It was Stripes. It was Ghostbusters. And I think to your generation, probably it was Judd Apatow. So to me, yeah. I'm like, well, if I'm given the choice between A Clockwork Orange and Judd Apatow, I'm probably going to go with Kubrick.
Well, yeah, although I don't know, Judd Apatow. I think Judd Apatow is best. Was, to be fair to Judd Apatow, I don't have any personal regard. I don't have any personal, feelings of generosity toward him these days that I haven't for many years. But I think he deserves to be closer in the conversation to Sturges than he does to Caddyshack, at least at his best. His involvement in he did imbue his work with some reality and some like tough moral kind of. He had some moral ambitions with his work that I think are not to be completely dismissed. But you can fill in whoever you want.
The thing
stupid
that I just,
bullshit, whoever you want. There's endless stupid bullshit.
No. But I think he's important because I think he did one thing to comedy which remains to this day, which is he is the opposite. Preston Sturges. I think obviously the heirs apparent to Preston Sturges right now are the Coen brothers, and they literally copy tons of Sturges shit in their movies. But the thing that they both share is their films are very written. They are written to a T. Both people's movies are written to a T. And Apatow pioneered this thing of, hey, let's get funny people together and have them just fucking spitball everything in their head. Just say everything you want about that might be funny, and then we'll cut it together. And that's what comedy is.
Stylistically, they're
now.
totally different. Stylistically, they're totally different. There's no comparison at all. I'm getting into the kind of abstract spiritual dimension where I kind of I group certain, for me. So I've thought lately about like, who are my big three overall influences, overall everything inclusive, and like as tentpole influences. And I decided that Preston Sturges is in that big three. Mm-hmm. And everything else that you could kind of like, everything else in my like spiritual worldview that is in the realm of comedy, in the realm of cinema, in the realm of what's the word, like brighter magic, and that in that kind of zone of energy, I kind of like affix to the Preston Sturges category. I think that when certain movies come out of nowhere and surprise us with joy, surprised by joy, as the title of a certain book by Mr. C.S. Lewis is, it nominates them for the Preston Sturges Award of that year. You know what I mean? So I think that it's not style. Yeah, I mean, stylistically, they couldn't be further apart. Yeah, Judd Apatow loves to jerk off, loves to smoke weed, and like have everyone look for little moments here, and like have everyone improvise and improv. And it's a very different mode. It's a very different style completely. And yeah, the Coen brothers have a more Sturgesian style. But man, I do not experience the joy in the Coen brothers.
I guess define joy. It's I guess they're sort of all over the map.
Yeah, I have never been delighted by the Coen brothers. I know some people love. I haven't watched The Big Lebowski in decades, so putting that aside.
Not a fan of that one, but okay.
Well, I just I like some of their movies well enough. I'm like, okay, I find some of their movies interesting, but then I find a lot of the other ones to be just kind of.
I think they're pretty inspired. I mean, one movie that has a lot of Sullivan's travels in it, and I think it actually is even set in 1941, is Barton Fink,
which I hated. I hated Barton.
You may hate it, but it's kind of a funhouse mirror version of Sullivan's Travels about this guy who is it's essentially Clifford Odets, a left-wing playwright who comes to Hollywood and thinks that he knows something about the common man and about lived life, and reality shows him a thing or two. It's certainly not in his life-affirming a way as Sullivan's Travels, but I think it's pretty similar, and I think that movie's very, very original.
Well, listen, I didn't watch that long ago, and I don't want to get into a debate over it because I don't have my talking points near to hand. It felt like a lot of their movies like pastiche more than it's like, okay, here's the scene where we have Faulkner, and here's the scene where it felt like one of these, like one of Woody Allen's type of like period pieces, which I'm not a fan of Woody Allen's period pieces relative to his other work.
Well, I will say, one thing is you're talking about Sullivan, and I was thinking about Woody Allen is Woody has a lot of endings that are very similar to the ending of Sullivan's Travels, where Woody is a hypochondriac who's thinking about death, and then he goes to see a Marx movie, and all of a sudden he realizes what life is all about, and somehow he never does it as convincingly as Preston Sturges did. That ending, the faces, the extras that Sturges got in that scene when they're watching, what is it, like Goofy or so? It's like a Disney short.
It's just they're watching Pluto, a Pluto Disney
Pluto.
cartoon, and that scene at the end, that scene at the black church, they marched the prisoners into a black church for the picture show as their once a week relaxation, and it's a black church, and then we start out in the black church, and the black preacher is giving a sermon, and then he's telling people to make way for the less fortunate who are coming in, and do not make them feel unwelcome in any way. And then they pull the screen down and they put on the picture show, and it's a Pluto cartoon. No, it's a Pluto, not Goofy. It's a Pluto cartoon, and everyone just screams with laughter uncontrollably throughout it. And Joel McCrea, Sullivan, learns his lesson. It's one of my favorite scenes ever of anything of all time, and I think about it constantly. And it's like it plays in my it plays in the screen in my soul on a loop. That scene, it's playing nonstop, and
it's the thing. Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, the image that I keep coming back to over and over again in looking at all these movies is. And this, I think, speaks to your notion of the political dimension of Sturges, is that he has all these characters that represent so many types. They represent so many classes. He has sort of hoity-toity character actors. He has roughneck character actors. He has all kinds of lowbrow people. And to me, it's very Mozart-like. If you kind of squoze all these movies together, you get the Marriage of Figaro, where at the end, it all comes together, like all the different parts of the nation, all the different classes, the different regions, they harmonize. And through the whole movie, they're yelling over each other and poking each other in the stomach and picking up the phone and yelling into the phone. And all that frenzy at the end turns into a beautiful harmony.
As in the ending of Nashville.
Yeah.
Well,
yes,
it's a different register. It's a different register, but that's why I've always felt a connection between the ending of Nashville and one of those massive Preston Sturges ensembles. It is still an American. It is still a celebration of the American spirit, however different the register.
It's equivocal, I think, because the song "It Don't Worry Me," if people don't know that, go on YouTube and look up the ending of Nashville.
Or just watch the movie.
Yeah, of course.
You could also watch one of the great movies of the 20th century.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're so inclined.
It ends with a pan up from the stage of Barbara Harris singing "It Don't Worry Me" to the clouds, and it feels like Altman is throwing his hands up to God and saying, "Now what? What do we do now?" Yeah.
Well, what we do is we put on some Preston Sturges, and we bring that camera back down, and we start singing again, and so that's what we do. The beautiful frenzied ensembles. I mean, the Christmas in July has the most impressive one because it's like there's like 1,000 people on the screen, and it's madness, and the madness changes direction multiple times, and Christmas in July has one of the best speeches in all of Sturges, one of the most arresting and one of the smartest, and just one of the most, I think, affecting speeches that you could listen to today, if you're at all entangled with the zeitgeist of the moment. When she tries to convince Dick Powell's boss to let him have the promotion anyway, even after they realized that he didn't win the contest. After all, it was all a prank. And that speech she gives, and that back and forth with the boss, which I'm going to try to find and play right now, is one for the ages.
Hard to face that gang tomorrow morning from the back of that desk.
It would be just as hard to face him from in here if you didn't belong here. Uneasy lies the
He
head.
does belong in here, Mr. Baxter.
Now, what is the joke this time?
He belongs in here because he thinks he belongs in here, because he thinks
Oh, that's all very deep dish and highfalutin. But from a practical...
It is practical, Mr. Baxter. It's the most practical idea you ever had. He belongs in here because he thinks he has ideas. He belongs in here until he proves himself or fails, and then somebody else belongs in here until he proves himself or fails, and somebody else after that, and somebody else after him, and so on for always. Oh, I don't know how to put it into words like Jimmy could, but all he wants, all any of them want is a chance to show, to find out what they've got while they're still young and burning like a shortcut or a stepping stone. Oh, I know they're not going to succeed. At least most of them aren't. They'll all be like Mr. Waterbury soon enough, most of them anyway. But they won't mind it. They'll find something else, and they'll be happy because they had their chance. Because it's one thing to muff a chance when you get it, but it's another thing never to have had a chance. His name's already on the door.
And that does it for the rather generous free portion of this episode. For the last hour, please subscribe at patreon.com/filthyarmenian, patreon.com/filthyarmenian. It is the only way to show support and keep the lights on over here at Filthy Armenian Adventureland, which has no Maxford House coffee behind it because it is singularly concerned with the truth and the state of your soul. So please do support it. It's not that much. It's a minimum of $5 a month. If you see a higher minimum, you're using the Apple iTunes, whatever. Apple charges 33% more. And we don't see a penny of that. So if you have an iPhone, subscribe from your browser to avoid that. The cheapest version is $5 a month. And, Apple's doing great, but they don't need the extra money. So go to your browser if you have an iPhone. If you don't, this doesn't concern you. Look forward to seeing you on the other side of the paywall at patreon.com/filthyarmenian. Thank you for listening. And if you appreciate what I'm doing, spread the word to your friends.